Halloween 2018 hit with brutally delightful force in the month of October 2018 after a successful and riveting trailer in the months prior to it. Halloween 2018 picks up 40 years after the events of the first film, and ignores previous elements set by the Elseworld movies such as Michael Myers and Laurie Strode being related, the cult storyline, and scraps Busta Rhymes from ever being in the Halloween universe.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
It takes it pretty much back to basic, and rocks for doing so. It sees Michael Myers break out of confinement and make his way through Haddonfield, killing everybody and anybody aside from one small baby in a crib that stands in the way of him. This movie is simply put excellent, and I love it. It's a riveting extravaganza led by an excellent cast and supported by a brutal and merciless Michael Myers played by James Jude Courtney, who completely embodies the shape. And aside from one not so great and pretty baffling twist that you'd expect in one of the other Halloween movies that are no longer canon, this movie is the Halloween movie we have longed for. Green directed this movie and ensured the visual flair of it was on point all the way throughout. It feels like a Halloween movie. It looks like a Halloween movie. It looks set in the town of Haddonfield. It's great looking and executed, elevated by John Carpenter's score and updated iconic theme. And also elevating the film is Laurie Strode, who returns once again being played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who I'm sure we all love. The movie lends heavy focus to displaying the damage done to her from her first encounter with Michael back in 1978, and it's something not often done as well or heavy-handed as it is here. For a bad example of this, you can easily go and look at the recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot/requel, which completely botched this element of being haunted by a demon from so long ago. Laurie is essentially a transformed character with an entirely new and upsetting look on life, one the film makes abundantly clear as it shows her abrupt and fragile relationships to those around her, and mainly her family. Karen, her daughter, played greatly by Judy Greer, and Andy, Laurie's granddaughter, played by newcomer and scene stealer Andy Matichak. She has one goal in this film, and it's to kill Michael Myers once and for all. For the whole of the runtime, she is pretty insane, and the movie is on a set path to have the two encounter again. And when they do, it's a whole lot of fun to watch unfold and come to fruition. One of my absolute favourite scenes from this movie is the exchange we get around the middle of the film between Laurie and Officer Hawkins, in which he simply asks why she prayed that Michael Myers would escape, and she puts it very bluntly to him in one badass way.
So I can kill him.
Now, speaking of killing, this film is full of it, and very few are done in a similar fashion to the ones that came before, which makes it fresh, unique, and a whole lot of gory fun. Sometimes it's watching a person be violently beat to death, other times you could be watching a light show that ends with a person being freaking impaled on the spikes of a garden gate, and while sure, some may think it's weird to get enjoyment out of that, but to that I say it's a slasher, and it's sort of the reason so many go into them. Everybody loves a good thrill and everybody loves a good horror. I guess they're not for everybody, but for me, absolutely they are. Because hell yeah, the kills here rock and spare no expense in terms of gore, creativity, and originality. Michael is a force not to be messed with, and I love it. The mask is also so cool in this movie, and it's probably at least in my top 2 favourite masks of all time for Michael Myers. Whoever's idea it was to give him essentially the exact same mask from the original film, just older looking and more gritty, deserves all the praise in the world. I much prefer over a new mask or a silly redesigned mask that are too ridiculous to take seriously, like several of the Elseworld Halloween movies went for. Looking at you, Halloween 5.
Look how they mask with my boy.
Ugh, that is nasty. What isn't nasty though is this movie, as I've probably made quite clear by now. Halloween is non-stop fun and enjoyment for me from start to finish. Whether it's during the moment spent with the podcasters in the beginning, the moment the bus crashes and a poor child dies by strangulation from Michael, or the party sequences and aftermath with Allison, or even the moment Michael and Laurie come face to face once more, but none are quite as enthralling to me as the final act set in Laurie's death trap home. The final act in this film is secluded, it's got a clear sense of direction, and it is brimmed with life, horror, and so much fun to be had. And it all leads to the moment Michael Myers is trapped in the basement and the flames ignite. Now, of course, the movie tried to play this off as the supposed death of Michael Myers, but to me, and I'm sure pretty much everyone else seen this film, all I really saw it for was the lighting of the flame for this brand new trilogy and breath of life into the Halloween universe. The last 40 or so minutes of this movie, I find myself rewatching probably too much, whether it's through clips online or scenes just uploaded directly to YouTube, or whether it's on the background and on the TV. I just can't help but tune in because, again, I just find it so much fun and just a really great time to have with the film. And this moment is only heightened by Michael's escape later on in the next film, Halloween Kills, but more on that another time. This film understood that to move the franchise forward and bring it to a new audience, it had to lose the baggage that lost so much of its previous audience in the first place. It's swift, has a great and simple story led by strong leads, doesn't refrain from the gore nor kills or horror, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. But that's not to say that it's a perfect film. It isn't. As I kinda touched on before, this movie's glaring issue for me is the baffling twist they made with the Sartain character, and I think it feels like a twist you'd expect from one of the previous Halloween movies that got canned from the main timeline. Now, don't get me wrong, the idea that it was Michael's doctor, who's very obsessed with him, caused the bus crash and wanted him on a pathway to Laurie to essentially investigate how Michael works and how his brain works, could have been great, but I just think the execution was flat, and I think it just felt forced into the movie at the wrong time, and ultimately I didn't care for it when there was so much else in the film I wanted to see more of or care more for. When it happens, it's like, okay, that's fine, but then a few minutes later you start to think of other ways they could have done it, and it just kind of leaves you thinking, really? Really? But honestly and genuinely, that's pretty much my main problem with this movie. I am 100% sure there are other nitpicks I could bring up and things that I think could have handled differently, but there's no more that pulled me out of the film aside from the one I've just mentioned. This movie is a joyously good time and one that sets the trilogy up for a hopeful payoff as Michael Myers returns to Haddonfield for one supposedly last time. But that's kind of my quick thoughts on Halloween 2018. As you can probably tell, I love this movie, I love the direction it's going for, and I really hope Halloween Ends pays it off because I think that would just be the cherry on top of this entire trilogy. Let me know what you think in the comments about Halloween 2018. Did you like it? Did you like it as much as me? And what do you think about them getting rid of all the really weird cult and sibling stuff that the previous movies, or previous Elseworld movies, set up? All that'll be great to hear. Halloween Ends is in cinemas very, very soon, so let the end begin.